welcome back to my YouTube channel. It is Barefaced Nikki here. So today I'm going to do a hacks video for my brown skin girls, for girls like me, for my dark skin girls, because I feel like when it comes to makeup, our skin tone is a little bit different. Sometimes it can be a little bit more difficult to find, especially in the drugstore, but I'm not going to start that rant, especially in the drugstore. But just the tones, hyperpigmentation, dark circles, we tend to get a little bit more if we are of a darker skin. Now I am concentrating a little bit more on skin as opposed to like eyes, because I feel like when it comes to eyes, you girls can rock anything. You girls and guys can rock whatever colors you like. But when it comes to skin, there are certain things like dark circles that we get that are hereditary, or things that are more common with a darker skin, like darkness around the mouth area, things like that, dark spots. And I want to talk about all of that, and I want to talk about the tips and tricks and the hacks that I have in regards to makeup for that. So if you guys want to see this video, then just keep on watching. Okay, so just bear in mind that this isn't going to be a makeup tutorial. To be honest, it's probably just going to be a very neutral makeup look. But I want to go over the steps starting off with skin. Now the first thing that I want to start off with is hair removal. If you are of a darker skin, and naturally you're probably going to have dark hair, which means that when your hair grows on your face, you're going to be able to see it more. Now something that I've been liking to use is this razor, and I like to actually shave my face. However, over time and over the months of me doing this, I just thought it was very important for me to note that if you are of a darker skin, when shaving areas that do have hair such as your sidelines, you will get a casted shadow. Now I didn't know this, and if I knew this I probably would have got my sideburns waxed, but just to let you know that when it's happened to me, I've got now hyperpigmentation when my sideburns are a little bit darker just from raising. Now to eliminate this, you would go back to waxing and not raising or shaving your face, but everywhere else actually hasn't got any hyperpigmentation. It would only be my sideburn area. So I feel like that's very important to note. Just as a dark skin girl, you may get hyperpigmentation from that area. I guess it's the same in terms of when you shave your armpits or when you shave your private areas, how they can get a little bit darker. I don't know if you're an Indian girl or a dark skin girl, does it get a little bit darker for you? Like my underarms are pretty dark because I shave. Obviously to eliminate this, you want to wax. So it's just the same concept on your face. So I'm going to start off with a strobing lotion. When looking for a strobing lotion, I try to go something with a peachy undertone to it or a goldish undertone. My favourite is actually the MAC strobe cream in gold light. I feel like this one is the best for a darker skin type. It just goes with the golden undertones of our skin. So I'm going to take a little bit of this and then just moisturise my skin so you can see the final result. Now I hope you guys can see that this is just added like a really nice plump look. A lot of people wear this when they're doing a no makeup day, just because it makes your skin look very healthy, but you haven't got any foundation on the skin. But the gold undertones of that is just going to really complement a darker skin tone. Next I want to mention primer. I don't usually tend to wear primer. I just feel like it's a very excessive step that doesn't really need to be taken. But if you are a primer girl and you like to wear primer, I would suggest going with a primer that doesn't have a white cast to it, doesn't have a white residue. I would go for something that's a little bit more coloured or has a little bit like 2% colouring like the Natural Radiance does. It's the Natural Radiance by MAC, the Prep and Prime, and this is in the yellow tone. It's just going to be a little bit more beneficial on a darker skin, and it's going to make sure that you just don't have that white cast or that ashiness. Sometimes with primers you can get a white cast and your makeup doesn't sit that well, or the colour shows through, or you just end up looking a little bit ashy, dusty and grey. So just try and avoid that by going either with a colourless primer altogether or something that's got a hint of yellow to it. Next I'm going to move on to just assessing your skin tone. Now when you look in the mirror, look at your skin, look at what colours there are in your skin. I am very warm, but I can be sometimes neutral as well in the centre, and I've assessed that just by looking at my skin. With a dark skin tone as well, naturally a lot of the time, not always, but a lot of the time, you're going to be darker on the outskirts of your skin. Your neck can sometimes tend to be a little bit darker, and then you're going to be brighter in the center. So you're actually going to be two tones. Sometimes people are many different tones in their skin, and if you want the most natural look, then you either go for a very, very lightweight foundation, or you go for different tones of foundation, and then you match it up with the tones on your skin. So what I'm going to be doing, because I am brighter in the center of my face, I'm going to go in with Benefit's Hello Happy Soft Blur Foundation in number 6, just in the center of my face where it is bright, just following the color of my skin. And then where it is a little bit darker, I want to go a little bit lightweight. I don't want to go too heavy. So I'm actually going to be using the MAC Face and Body in C6 Shock Horror. And then just using a damp beauty blender just to blend everything together. And I'm also going to take that darker color just down my neck and my chest area to make sure that everything kind of goes down into one canvas. Okay, so once your foundation's down, it's going to look something a little like this. Now it is important to try out different foundations. I feel like you guys know that the Face and Body is my favorite foundation because one, it's lightweight, you can build it up, but I like the tones of it. It's not too yellow. I feel like MAC Studio Fix is very yellow, and I don't really know who's that yellow, but it comes up like I look like a Simpsons character when I wear Studio Fix. That's why I tend not to wear it. I like the Fenty Beauty, but the Fenty Beauty in the shade 310, I would say, where is it, is a little bit yellow for me as well. This one just comes up a tiny bit yellow, and that's why I like Face and Body, because it's a warm tone, but it is neutral warm, if that sort of makes a sense. So you've got a similar skin tone to mine, then try this one. Another one that I've heard is very good is True Match, but they still tend to be a little bit more beigey for me. So just make sure that you try loads of different foundations and see what really suits your skin tone. Okay, so I don't know if you guys can tell, I've got my foundation on, but I do have a little bit of hyperpigmentation around my mouth area. Now I feel even with that darker foundation, it still looks a little bit ashy to me. It looks a bit dusty just around my mouth area where you look like you've got a bit of a beard and a moustache. Now there are different ways around this. You can color correct with an orange underneath before you put your foundation on. But what I like to do, and because I've just got it, is I like to use a foundation that is slightly darker, but it has that reddish undertone to it. I like to use products that are for the skin as opposed to correctors. I'm not really about the corrector life and going in with a bright orange, just because I feel like they can be overused and it's difficult to get rid of that oranginess, and I don't feel like it's always necessary. So I like to actually use the Ordinary Serum foundation. This is in the shade 3.1Y. Now this is darker than my skin tone, but it's got that orange tone to it, which I like, and I honestly only use this around my mouth area and then just balance it by dabbing a little bit on my forehead area just to balance the color around. Now I hope you guys can see that the orange just around my mouth area has really toned down the ashiness. I am quite sensitive about my mouth area because I guess it's because when I was younger I used to be bullied for having a moustache when I just had hyperpigmentation around my mouth area. So I do everything now possible, I guess, like from that 10-year-old me, it's just sort of stuck, and I do everything possible to get rid of the ashiness. But I feel like the orange in this foundation just really helps to counteract that. Anything with an orange undertone, orange is your best friend. Being a dark skinned girl, orange warm tones are going to be your best friend, whether it be with skin, whether it would be with lips, whether it would be the eyes. Orange, red, anything warm is going to be your best friend. Okay, so the same goes for eyes. I absolutely love covering dark circles. I don't know what it is. I just feel like a completely new person when I cover other people's dark circles as well. I just really like covering dark circles, which is really weird. There are multiple ways of doing this. Now you can use a corrector, which means that you would use the orange part on the darkness, and that would act as your corrector, and you would put your foundation on top. The one that I like to use is the MAC corrector. This is in burnt coral. Sometimes I mix it with a bit of the yellow just to tone down the orange, and then I would pop that on and then place my concealer on top. But if I'm honest, I don't really like to use corrector. So that this was a Nikki back in the day. This is what I used to use. Now if I'm using a concealer, I like to actually correct with my concealers similar to how I did my foundation base. I like to use the MAC Pro Longwear in NC45. Now this one actually has orangey undertones to it. It's a bit too dark for my skin, but it has that orangey redness to it. And then I like to mix that with the MAC NC25 to get a really nice mix, and I pop this underneath my eyes, and because it's very heavy coverage, it just illuminates some dark circles straight away. However, the easiest way that I found just to cover dark circles, obviously dependent on how dark they are. I feel like sometimes they can be a little bit more difficult if you've got very dark circles and then your skin is very fair, then that can be quite challenging. But if you've got a darker skin tone, I wouldn't worry too much about having dark circles because they are easily disguisable. What I like to do is honestly just go for a full coverage concealer and just go for a good tone in it. So go for something that's similar to your skin tone, something maybe that has a little bit more yellow or peach in it that's going to help correct but conceal at the same time, then you're not having to faff around with the correctors. My favorite one of all time at the moment, because I'm sure it will change when I try different products, is the DECAY All Nighter Waterproof Full Coverage Concealer, and I like to use the shade Medium Dark Warm. Now it's still got the warmth to it that it's going to counteract the darkness, but it's got the full coverage that is really just going to eliminate everything and give me a really nice flawless coverage, but also look like skin at the same time. So I'm just going to pop this underneath my eyes and then beauty blender this bad boy out. Now as you can see, the colour looked like it was quite light when it went on, but as I've blended it out, and I've just used the same side that I popped on my foundation with, it's really blended well. I mean, the coverage is absolutely insane. You can see the distinct line between the darkness of my eyes and the concealer, but that doesn't really matter. Another tip that I want to say to you guys is that when you are of a darker skin, you can tend to have darker eyelids. Now it is just a natural smoke. Sometimes it can work to your advantage because you can get away with putting nothing on your eyelids and it looks like you've got a really nice smoky eye. But a lot of the time I don't like it because I like to wear lighter colours on my lids. I feel like they suit my eye shape and my skin tone a little bit better, and I like my eyes to look a bit bigger. So what I do is I will just take that same concealer and I'll just pop the excess on my eyelids just to create like a blank canvas, so everything just kind of is seamlessly looking one colour. Now it's time to highlight. Now when highlighting with a darker skin, try to go for something that has a yellow undertone to it. So I actually like to go a lot lighter than my natural skin because I like to lift underneath my eyes, but I don't ever go for colours that have a neutral undertone or a pinkish undertone. I like to go for something with a little bit of yellow because that's really going to help brighten our skin. Now the one that I like to use, and I like to use different ones all the time, I like MAC Light Boost if I want a very light highlight underneath the eye, but if I want something a bit more full coverage, I like to go with the Revolution Conceal and Define Concealer in C8.5, and I also like a bit of C6.5 as well if I want it a little bit lighter. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pop this underneath my eyes, and then also don't forget just to pop it in the center of your face just to make sure that your face is well balanced. I like to pop this on and then just buff this out using the same damp beauty blender. Now sometimes you do just need to be a little bit careful with highlighting, because when I've done my highlight and I've blended it out, I look very ghost-like, but I am going to balance this out with contour and bronzing. So just because that's part of my routine, I'm very used to it and it doesn't shock me when I've got my highlight on. But sometimes if you are of a darker skin tone, if you're gonna use a highlight and it may be a bit too light, just be a little bit careful because you don't want it to be too light. It will end up looking grey and it will end up looking ashy and it just won't do you any justice. It will look more grey and your skin will look more kind of drab than it will brighten. Okay, so now I'm gonna contour. I don't actually tend to contour, I bronze a lot and then I let the bronzing do my contouring for me, but today I'm gonna talk to you about contouring. When contouring, you wanna go for something that is a little bit more of a coolish tone, which means that it's got a little bit more grey. It's not very warm because you wanna create illusions of shadows. That's where it's going to cut you on your cheekbones and therefore your cheekbones will appear higher. What I like to use for my skin tone is Fenty Beauty, the matchstix in the shade Truffle, because it's not too warm but it's also not too grey, and I like to just take this on a buffing brush where I'm going to have a little bit more precision with it, and I'm just going to cut my cheekbones and then just kind of try and take my forehead down a little bit. But I want to concentrate this colour very to the points that aren't going to go down using it as a bronzer. I just want to contour with this to create illusions of areas looking smaller and thinner. Okay, so now hopefully you guys can see that I've created a cheekbone, but this hasn't bronzed at all. It's just created a bit of an illusion that I have higher cheekbones, and I've kind of just tried to minimize my forehead or my 5 head. Now I wanted to talk to you guys about bronzing on a darker skin tone. I personally love anything with a red undertone, anything that is kind of orangey with a red undertone, and I absolutely love the iconic London pigment stick. This is a foundation pigment stick in the shade 5.1, but it has that beautiful rich redness undertone to it. I personally like to bronze in cream and then go over top with a powder. Another palette that I actually really like is a Revolution Pro HD Camouflage and Conceal palette, and I like to use the contouring shades in there because they have really nice reddy undertones. So I like to actually bronze up with these ones. So I like to go over with the cream bronzer. I'm going to take the pigment stick and just dab a little bit over the areas of my skin that I want to bronze, which should just be the outskirts, just to warm up my face now. And then I'm going to buff that out just using a brush. Now the reason why I actually tend to like cream a little bit more is just because I feel like cream bronzer looks ever so natural, and also I like to layer my products. So I like to layer my skin products with liquids, creams, and then go into a powder if I'm going to be using it. I just feel like it looks a little bit more natural that way as well. Now it's important to set cream products in place, and what I like to do is I'm going to go in with the powder. I like to use the BH Cosmetics Studio Pro Contour Palette, because it's got these really beautiful reddish undertones, like orangey reddish undertones, and then the colors that I like to go for when I'm bronzing the skin. I also really like the MAC Dark Deep Mineralized powder. You guys have seen me use that a ton of times, and also Give Me Sun. Anything with a kind of like reddish orangish undertone, just to go quite cohesive with that cream bronzer, but just also to set that in place. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to take a fluffy brush and I'm going to dip into this orangey shade and this reddish undertone shade as my bronzer, and I'm just going to go over all the places that we've placed the cream. Now before I go on to completing the skin with powders, I'm just going to quickly fill in my brows, and what I like to use is the Anastasia Dip Brow pomade in dark brown. Now one tip that I would suggest, regardless of your skin color or how dark you are, please don't go for a black eyeliner. I feel like black eyeliner on any skin type can look very harsh. If you are a dark skin tone, then just try to go for something that is a very dark brown, close to black. The only reason being is black can sometimes look a little bit too harsh, and when I've done this, when I've even used a very dark brown, it's called Blackest Brown by LA Girl, sometimes that during the day can look a little bit more green. Like my eyebrows look a bit more green and they don't achieve the look that I'm going for. So I'm just going to quickly fill my brows in. You guys have seen me do this a million times. I'm just going to take an angle brush and fill in all of the gaps. Now I'm just going to clean up my eyebrows because they're playing me a little bit at the moment. The shape is a little bit off on either side, and I'm going to take my Laura Geller, the Real Deal concealer in the shade medium. Again, this shade has a warm undertone to it, which is going to help me highlight. It's also lighter, which is going to help lift the eyebrow, but I'm also just going to prime my lid a little bit with this, just to give me that just give me that coverage before I bake my eyelids to set it in place. Then just taking my damp beauty blender, I'm just going to buff over that. Now it is just really important to take this step, especially if you do have hyperpigmentation around your eyes. The only reason being is because when you put shadow on and you haven't primed or you don't have a blank canvas, then the colors are just going to get mixed with the darkness on your lid, and they're probably not going to show up as well as they possibly could. Now I generally will like to do my baking stage all in one. I have started baking because I use the tip that Makeup by Mario has, and you know what, it works wonders for me. My concealer stays, don't have to do anything, it looks very smooth underneath the eyes. But I like to do my baking all in one, which means I like to bake on my eyelid and underneath my eyes. Now of a darker skin tone, you most definitely do not want a white powder. Please don't use a white powder because that's going to in turn make you look ashy. Be very careful about the colored powders as well. I like to personally go for a translucent powder, and I like to go for a yellow toned powder. So here I've got the Kat Von D. This is the Lock-It powder in golden, and I've got the Cover FX powder in the translucent light. I like to actually mix these two together and bake with them because the yellow will add brightness, but the yellow on its own doesn't brighten, if that sort of makes sense. If you're a darker skin tone, the golden might be perfect for you. Whatever brightening powder you're going for, go for either a translucent or go for something that's got a hint of yellow in it, because that will really lift and it will really brighten your skin. So I'm just going to mix these two powders together. Just take them on a damp beauty blender, and I'm just going to pack this on top of my lid and then just underneath as well, just to start the baking process. Now sometimes if I'm feeling a little bit extra, I will just cut my cheekbones. Okay, so please note guys that I look a little bit crazy, but this step is completely optional. You don't have to do it. It's very, very Instagram worthy, and you don't have to do it whatsoever. I've just recently started using powders, and I like to actually bake now just because my under eyes look a little bit smoother. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to take a little bit of the excess powder on a small brush, and I'm just going to brush it away. The reason why I take excess powder on my small brush is just so nothing drags underneath. So I'm just going to do this and then just lightly brush all the powder away. Okay, so one thing that I do find, especially when I brush the powder away, is it can look a bit like a horror scene, and you're a bit like, what have I done to my face? It looks a bit chalky, it looks powdery, can look a little bit ashy in some areas. But what I do, the honest truth is, I just take a little bit of Fix Plus. This is the MAC Fix Plus in the rose scent. I like to spray this all over the face, and then it gets everything just looking like skin again, but it's all baked. Just make sure that you don't drench yourself in it, because you don't want your makeup falling off, but just enough to hydrate the skin again. Now I'm going to move on to blusher. Blusher that I absolutely love on a darker skin tone are orangey, peachy, copper tones. I feel like they complement. They go with, so if you want to go for something natural, go for the undertones, the natural undertones of your skin. There would be warm colours like reds, oranges, yellows, things like that, so they look very natural. A blusher palette I actually like to go to a lot is the Revolution blush in Hot Spice. This palette has a lot of orangey tones and warmy tones, which I really like to mix and match between. There are other ones also like Too Faced, the Peaches blusher is really cute. There's the Sigma Corda Rose. That one's got a little bit more of a peachy vibe to it, a little bit more pink in it, but I like this one. And today I think I'm going to go for a few oranges. So I'm going to mix these three shades together, and I'm just going to pop them on the apples of my cheeks, and it will give me like a really nice, natural, kind of youthful look to my skin. I'm just going to quickly set my brows with the MAC Clear Brow Set because I forgot to do this stage. Now, if I'm honest, I don't actually know what Clear Brow Set does. I know it sets your brows, but I mean, I'm a girl, I like security, so if they're not going to fly off, they're not going to fly off. I like the added security that's here to stay. Now let's talk about highlight. For highlights, I like to, for a darker skin tone, generally go with a gold. Anything with a gold undertone is going to look beautiful on our skin. Even a rose gold looks nice, but I tend to go more just for the gold tones, depending on what look I'm going for. I have a really nice pinkish highlighter called Show Gold by MAC that's got pink flecks of glitter in. Really nice if you're doing like a very pink eye, pink lips, and just a very galley look. But in general, for an everyday purpose, I like to go for a gold. I've got here MAC's Oh Darling, which is one of my favorite all-time highlighters. Another one is Double Gleam, and I've got quite a few actually. All you want to do is you just want to go for a gold, but different strengths of gold. So something like Gold Deposit by MAC would look beautiful on a very dark skin tone, probably about 4 shades darker than myself, or something like Trophy Wife by Fenty Beauty, even though it's a pure gold, will look really nice on a dark skin tone. On me, it just comes up gold. So you don't want a highlighter that's gonna look darker. You want it to highlight, you want it to create the effect of a highlight, but you want to stay away from anything icy, anything too white, anything too champagne can sometimes look a little bit dusty on the skin as well. So just try and go for something with a gold undertone. I'm just going to take a little bit of this on my tapered blending brush, and I'm just going to apply this to the high points of my face. I'm also just going to apply a little bit to my brow bones and my inner tear ducts as well. Okay, now once my highlight is done, I'm going to go ahead and just do my eyes off camera, because I feel like eyes doesn't really matter. You can use whatever colors you want. Personally, I would say that I like warm palettes. So for instance, I like the NYX Ultimate. This is, I think, the warm neutrals. It's got beautiful colors in this. It's got really kind of smoky colors for the day, and then for the night, and then you've got daytime colors, you've got oranges, you've got reds. Another one is Anastasia Modern Renaissance. It's got beautiful colors. And then if you wanted something that was very warm and that's all you wear, then the DECAY Heat palette is beautiful as well, because it has really nice warm tones that you could wear for the day and the night, and I guess you could just wear this all year round. And they look beautiful. Warm tones look beautiful on the eyes, but that isn't to say that you can't wear cool tones, isn't to say that you can't wear greys, because you can wear whatever color you want on the eyes. So I'm just gonna go ahead and quickly do my eyes off camera. Okay, so now I'm back. I've just literally popped on some lashes, very light eyeshadow, because I wanted this look to be more about the tips and tricks. But I thought of a tip and trick whilst I was doing my eyes. This isn't more so to do with the color of your skin, but this is to do with if you struggle with dark circles. I think I've shared it with you guys once before, but that is to take your blending brush and to really smoke out your lower lash line. This is going to help draw away attention from your under eyes if you do suffer from darkness. It's also going to help draw away from if you've packed on quite a bit of concealer and you've got a very highlighted under eye. If you just smoke out your lower lash line, this really distracts from the lines underneath your eyes and from the darkness as well. Also, I tend to come down quite low just because I do have fine lines right under my eyes. I really hate them, but I can't avoid them. And I like to come down quite low just so when people look at you, they're not even looking at the lines underneath. You're kind of drawing the attention away from that area. Okay, so just to quickly finish off my eyes, I'm just going to pop on a little bit of bottom mascara. And now we're going to move on to lips. The reason why I've got lips included within this hacks video is because our girls or boys with darker skin can tend to have hyperpigmentation around their lips, or if you are of a dark skin girl, you can tend to get darkness around the outskirts of your lips, and then it's a lot brighter in the center, and that's annoying when, especially when you're trying to find a nudish color, or you're trying to find a lipstick that is very neutral but it's sheer. You tend to go for colors that have got higher pigmentation in them, so you can kind of mask the darkness. The way in which I do it is my lips tend to be a little bit darker on the outskirts, and I like to just mimic that. I feel like you can wear any color you want. You can wear a concealer colored lip if you really wanted to. You can wear a pastel color, but all you need to do is you need to pair it with a darker lip liner. Anything with a darker lip liner on a dark skin tone, you can get away with any color whatsoever. If you've got hyperpigmentation, I would recommend going for something that is a little bit more matte, going for something with a bit of a higher coverage, so you're able to disguise the discoloration. So my lip liner of choice is MAC's Wow lip liner. I also like a cork and I like a chestnut, but chestnut is a little bit too deep for me. So if you are of a dark skin girl, then chestnut would be a very, very good neutral tone for you. NYX lip liners also have dupes for all of the MAC ones, so you don't need to spend that many pennies on the MAC ones. But I'm just going to use a MAC Wow lip liner, and I'm just going to line my lips with this. Now, colors that I personally love on a dark skin tone are peaches, reds, plums look nice as well, and then any neutrals with like a warmish tone to them also look nice. And I also love pinks. We can get away with anything, if I'm honest, anything, but I do personally really like, you guys know, like a peachish tone. So I'm actually going to go in with MAC's Peach Stock. This is a satin lipstick. It's a light peachish tone, so I'm just going to pop this into the center of the lips and then blend it out. Okay, so now that my lips are looking pretty nude, because I've been loving a gloss recently, I'm just going to go over top with this isn't even a gloss, it's like a lip comfort oil by Clarins in the shade 01 Honey. I'm just going to go over my lips with this. And that, guys, is the finished look. These are all my hacks and tips and tricks that I've got for a darker skin tone. Please bear in mind that obviously this is a very nude lip. It's a very neutral look. This look with a bright red or a bright orange will look beautiful on all skin tones, I think. Like a red and orange look beautiful on a fairer skin tone as well. I just happened to go for a neutral because I wanted to show you guys how you could work a lighter neutral with a darker skin. That is it. I think that's everything. I hope you guys really enjoyed this tips and tricks video. I know it wasn't much of a makeup tutorial, but I hope you guys learned something new nonetheless. Leave me all your comments down below because I do read all of them. Also stalk me on my social handles, which will be down in the description box. And yeah, I love you guys so very much. I will see you in my next video. Mwah.